Hey, welcome back, you guys. Brandon and Vanessa here. We are on chapter 2,
Chapter 2, Emotionally Healthy
Leader.
Leader.
The Emotionally Healthy Leader by Peter Scazzero.
Oh, got it.
Woo! I did it. So we finished chapter 2, and we're going to change things up a little bit because last time we felt like it was more like, hey, welcome to our book study, and it was really more, our intention is to invite you into our process. So we read the book and we're going to discuss it like we would in our own living room.
Yeah, like you're not even here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Nothing to see here. And just take you along for the journey. So
Yeah, so chapter 2, Face Your Shadow.
face your shadow.
Face your shadow. Man, shadows are not fun. They're scary, and it's easy not to deal with them when you're in the light.
When you're in the light,
There's no darkness.
there is no darkness. Or is light. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know where you're going with
I
that.
don't either.
So a couple things that stuck out to me at the beginning of the chapter. The first and most difficult task we face as leaders is to lead ourselves. Why? Because it requires confronting parts of who we are that we prefer to neglect, forget, or deny.
Mm-hmm. I actually highlighted that same
I was like,
exact line.
dang, I do not want to deal with my own stuff. So let me fix everyone else.
Yeah, that's a good project.
And that's pretty much how my life has been.
Mm-hmm.
Like people come to me when they have issues or questions, and I seem to, and I'm not like, this isn't a pat my back, but I seem to be everyone's best friend or closest friend because I'm always there for them when they need me, and always able to help them overcome whatever it is they're dealing with. But I should be my own best friend. Give myself a hug. Remember, like, you remember that?
Yeah.
You remember, like, when you were young, you would like turn
Oh my
around
gosh,
and
I'm
like,
not.
oh yeah,
Okay.
Sit
down.
like no,
No,
all right.
just sit down.
No, that was, you remember.
Nothing to see here.
I used to do that. Okay, so
You
that's just
would.
me.
That's such a boy thing to do.
Exactly.
Oh
It's a boy thing to do. Hey, if you did that, you better put something in the comments. I did that too, so I don't feel so alone. I don't want to feel so lonely.
So like I said, I highlighted that same exact couple of sentences. And then the little paragraph underneath from Parker Palmer: everything in us cries out against it. That is why we externalize everything. It's far easier to deal with the exterior world. It is easier to spend your life manipulating an institution than dealing with your own soul. We make institutions sound complicated and hard and rigorous, but they are simplicity itself compared with our inner labyrinths. It was just like, yep, I'd rather go solve like quote unquote big problems than sit down with myself and look at the ugliness that's there.
Right. And I think it was a lot easier for people to do that back in the day when there wasn't as much technology and you couldn't binge watch a show on Netflix.
Right.
And, like if you didn't record a show on TiVo, you missed it. Like it was done, right? Or if you didn't record it on VHS when I was a kid.
My mom did that.
Yeah, so like
every day, days of our lives.
There's so many other things to deal with and get lost in than to deal with your own stuff. And I think that's why this is so important. I was just having a conversation with a friend yesterday that I just felt the nudge to check in with him and say, hey, how you doing, man? And it was just one of those weird things. Just reach out to him and he's like, hey, I've really been dealing with some depression. I've really been having a hard time. And so we got on the phone and I just felt like I needed to share my story of what I've been going through. And he's like, same, So it's cool because when I recommended him the book, he's like, I'll order it right now. Like I'm willing to do just about anything at this point. And it's like, I don't know, like you guys might not be there, but it's never too late to start like working on yourself,
Yeah. Well, I think even to that point, when you make that conscious effort to start looking internal and doing the really hard thing, you are amazed at how quickly what you're receiving you're able to give. And so, like you're now more aware, right? You were more aware because you're doing the internal work to then be like, hey, this is helping me. I can help you by telling you how I'm helping myself, right? So I think that's another aspect of going through this as leaders, right? Whether entrepreneurial leader in the workplace or a church leader, it's so important because you're going to become a better leader because of it, because you are looking internal.
Well, leader with your family too, like leading your family when you have kids, and we have 4 boys. So like, just to think, we had a dinner with some friends the other night, and they had us over for dinner, and they encouraged us, and they now have grandkids, and it was really cool just to hear their perspective of like, man, now we're praying with our kids, trying to bring healing to the stuff that we put them through. So wow, what if we could, we're not going to be perfect, but what if we could raise emotionally healthy children in a world that seems impossible to do that?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're committing to in doing this, I think.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
That's the hope, right?
So in the second page here on chapter 2, I really connected with the leader. So they tell a story of a leader and a pastor, and I just want to read this because this speaks to me. So like, if you're an entrepreneur, you will connect with this guy that's like crushing it in the world, making a lot of money, doing a lot of good things, but always starting projects and always trying to do more. He meets and he talks to Peter, right? He talks to Peter. He says, when I gather with other visionary leaders like myself, it's electric. We dream, talk, plan, and imagine a better world. I love it, but I begin to notice something that's not so great about it. We love to talk about living on the edge and the excitement they feel for the next adventure, but all I know is that I am completely addicted to the adrenaline rush of what's next. And nobody's at the gatherings I attend tends to talk about the fallout from that kind of leadership. So like, he goes on to talk about all the things he succeeded in, but all of the worries and all of the pressure and keeping up payroll and always having to come with new ideas and like all that stuff. And that's kind of the pressure that I feel. I go to these getaways where I do vision planning every 90 days, and I come back and I'm like, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And I probably overwhelmed you
so many times.
Quite a few times.
Well, you can see the pattern, right? And we were talking about this the other day, like you can't always see your own stuff, and it's so much easier for somebody else to point it out. But it's like, I remember just like, oh no, he's going away, which means he's going to come back all excited with all these new ideas and plans that I'm going to have to try to carry all of them out. And I'll probably get a couple weeks in, and then it's going to fall off. And then he'll periodically check in like, hey, and then feel very disappointed that nothing ever happened. And then he'll go to another one with a whole new set of ideas that had nothing to do with the first. So in our wake, there's all these unfinished projects.
Yeah. I mean, that's been pretty common, and sometimes projects get done, but there's always more projects than there is time for. And so that's one of the reasons for us slowing down right now is, like, I'll just speak to you guys, like, and I'm at a point in my business right now in real estate. I've had a lot of success over the years, but I'm coming to a point where I'm not feeling peace in anything I'm doing, which is really hard. And I had same thing. I had like these 2 or 3 huge projects that I knew could just be amazing, and I've just been feeling like spiritual opposition. I've been feeling it's been really, really hard, and I don't feel peace in it. Now I'm not opposed to doing the hard work, but this is what's making me shut that pattern off and say, hey, I'm not going to go on these huge projects, even though I really felt like they were impactful. Right. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. You know, like what's my best use of my time right now? And I think that's why we're here doing this.
Well, and I appreciate that because I know that you are the head of our household, the leader, the provider for our family. But I mean, for you to do that and is such a reliance on the Lord and Holy Spirit, like that means so much more than you going out and producing and working till you're sick, like
Yeah, that's been
putting your
another
body
common
on the
thing.
line, for that.
That's the normal pattern. I work really hard, crush it, do really well, and then my body shuts down. But that, like, it's not easy though. Like, I still struggle, and we've had some conversations about it. Like, I still struggle every single day
Mm-hmm.
with, like, all right, maybe it's time to just focus on, making these calls and connecting with people and doing these marketing plans. And every day it's just that constant reminder of, like, another day that I didn't feel like I worked hard. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not the season that he's calling me to be in. So it's still an internal struggle. So
Yeah. Yeah, it goes against everything that's in you.
yeah. So
Counterintuitive.
a few of the other things he said, like on a typical day, this is what life looks like for me. There were three things that stuck out to me. I over communicate on social media. I am in a hurry all of the time, and I'm always looking for the next idea or activity.
Mm.
So, like, kind of just speaking to what I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs go through in general. Like, if you're in business for yourself, uh,
That's all on you.
yeah, and he says he goes into panic mode. He has short fuse. He doesn't sleep well. Like, not all of those connected with me, but it did enough to say, oh man, this isn't healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So time for a change.
Change. Yeah.
Michael Jackson, make a change. I'm not going to sing it.
Please don't. Don't stop.
Okay, all right. She doesn't like my
I
Michael
said
Jackson.
don't, and then I said stop. That does not mean don't stop. It means
Believe
please
in.
stop.
Oh, we have our 3-year-old here today. We
Yes.
decided we're just going to record, and if you hear crazy noise, it's his birthday. He's 3. Hey,
He's
stop
3.
throwing things down the stairs, big guy. Thanks. Love your show. What else?
Let's see.
What is a shadow?
Yeah, that's what I highlighted. Is your shadow is the accumulation of untamed emotions, less than pure motives and thoughts that, while largely unconscious, strongly influence and shape your behaviors. It is the damaged but mostly hidden version of who you are.
Hidden. I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it.
So it may reveal itself more subtly through a need to rescue others and be liked by people, a need to be noticed, an inability to stop working, a tendency toward isolation or rigidity.
Rigidity.
I know, I'm like, rigidity.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I also went to the Center for Kids Who Can't Read Good.
So sometimes when I see like words, I go, no, it's missing another consonant.
Mm-hmm.
Rigidity. But it doesn't, obviously. But and that actually, which we'll talk about later, but I highlighted those and wrote next to that. I was like, oh, that's the Enneagram.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yeah, we're gonna get to
which
that.
later in the book he even talks about that, of like that's it's like a really good tool to use is the Enneagram. But we'll get there.
Yeah. If you're not connecting, go to the end and listen to all the Enneagram stuff, because that's going to be great. But lastly, he says that aspects of the shadow may be sinful, but they may also be weaknesses or wounds. They tend to appear in the ways we try to protect ourselves from feeling vulnerable or exposed. This means that the shadow is not simply another word for sin.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good distinction in realizing, man, like, you ever get angry and know that you're angry? It's like, but you can't stop yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I think about. Is sometimes when I feel like my back's against the wall, like I have a rage burst, or I get angry at the kids or whatnot, and I just like lash out, or when I'm in a stressful situation, and I know I'm doing it, but I can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely been there before.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this test.
Mm-hmm.
What stood out to you about it? There's 10 different questions. How healthy is your approach to your shadow?
Buddy, hey, you got to go watch the iPad in the other room, son.
Can you turn it down?
That's funny. Turn it down.
He just got PJ Masks toys, which he's really excited
Yeah, because
about.
it's his birthday.
And he wants to watch PJ Masks.
Of course. So we're
help,
going to
help him out.
Turn that down real quick. So how healthy is your shadow? I'll talk about what kind of stood out for me. So you take the test, right? 5 is always true. 1 is never true. You got some places in between. The first question, it says, I take time regularly to experience and process my anger, fear, and sadness with God and others. I was like, 2, like every once in a while. That was kind of my first indication that that's rarely true of me, right? But the one that stuck out the most was number 7. I consistently seek out guidance from mentors, a counselor, a spiritual director, or other mature believers to help me process how my shadow manifests itself in my leadership. That's a never. That's like, oh man. And I know that I tend, and we're going to talk about the Enneagram, and I tend to help other people, and I tend to be leading way more people than I'm following. And I tend to not have as many peers, and just some stuff from my past doesn't allow me to like push past really having people I can confide in, but then leaders who I can trust. And so that's crazy to think that I've been dealing with this all on my own. And I share some things with you, but there's only so much you can share with a wife, right? You need other men in your life. And so I'm like, man, no wonder like my body's going through all of this stuff. No wonder I haven't been able to like get past some things, and I haven't been able to like deal with my emotions.
Right.
And there's a reason why. Like I haven't really had a lot of mentors in my life. Like I've had mentors, but not like on a daily or weekly basis. That really accountability, you know. And then sometimes people that have been discipling me for a time, I end up discipling them. You know, like it's, and that's just the pattern that I've created because it's safer for me than actually dealing with my stuff.
Wow, that's kind of a big deal right there.
Yeah.
And even being able to recognize that it's a pattern you create. You know, so many times I think we think like, oh, this is just, it happens to me, right? Like, oh, it just, that's kind of how the cards played, or those are the people that were in my life. But for you to say you created the pattern, like that speaks a lot to the shadow, right? Working behind the scenes. And oftentimes us not knowing it, it's unconscious, you know, our subconscious working behind our backs.
Yeah. How about for you? What stood out for you?
I too scored a 1 of never true, of consistently seeking out guidance from mentors and such to process how my shadow manifests itself in my leadership. I think that I've been able to get by and use you a lot for that. Like you and I really go back and forth quite a bit. We communicate about.
Hey, Micah.
We communicate about so much, like what we're dealing with, internal struggles, and a lot of issues that I don't know if many couples really like lay that stuff out because it could get you in trouble with each other, right? But we really do have a lot of those questions. But I feel like now the shift of being at a church leader now requires something further from me, where it's like, okay, all these people are under me, but it's like I need to be under someone as well. Like there's part of that that is so healthy to be able to run things by, to have the backup, and you know, have the support, all of that, so that you're not doing it alone. Because I think that I mean, we know like that's how the enemy takes us out, is like just get them alone, isolated, feeling overwhelmed, and then it's easy to make mistakes. So that was a 1 for me.
But real quick, if like I feel like that would be easy to do, to seek someone out in a spiritual setting, like at a church, right? You have leaders that are above you, or in our case, we have ministries we're involved in where there are people that can help with that. But like practically in life, right, or in business, like how do you find that? Like how do you find that mentor or that person? Like what does that look like? Because I think that's the issue for a lot of people, right? Because not everyone's in church leadership and has access to that.
Well, I think it takes a level of vulnerability because you have to pursue someone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so hard, is that most often, leaders, or even just us, to speak just to us, like we there's a sense of pride around that we're not needy, that we can take care of ourselves, we're independent.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to our childhood. Like there are certain things that was kind of programmed in us from such a young age of, okay, take care of yourself, be independent, don't, for me, it was like, never let them see you cry, be strong, that kind of thing. Where it takes such a level of vulnerability to be like, hey, I really would like to get with you. Hey, I think we should do this. Like the constant, because like one of my biggest like fears would be like that I'm needy,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't want to be needy, and so like to reach out, not just once, like sometimes I'm like, I'm good, I did it one time.
Mm-hmm.
And even talking to you, like, you got to reach out again. I'm like, no, I already did. They didn't respond, so I'm moving on, but
Mm-hmm.
it's that the
Intentionality, yeah.
persistence,
Mm-hmm.
because you asked me a really good question and you're like, well, what you have
Wow.
Spider-Man on your iPad?
Oh, nice.
I like the
Okay, take it
Spider-Man
in that
song.
room. Okay. Okay. All right.
Okay, take them with you. You asked me a really good question of like, what do the people that are following you, like what buys you into, pouring into other people? And I'm like, well, they pursue me. And you're like,
Yeah.
take your time, just soak that one in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, dang it, you got me.
But in the business world, I'll just speak to that, right?
Yeah.
So, been in business a long time. There are mentors out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are so many mentors. There's so many people that have had success, and they are waiting for someone to ask them. They're waiting for someone to ask them, or they're waiting for someone to pursue them. They want to share what they know, but people are too afraid. Oh, they're too successful, or they're too busy, or once people retire, right, or they're free from time and they make enough money. Like I can't tell you how many times where I've just reached out to someone and just invited them to coffee or bought them lunch or whatever it was and asked them questions, and they were more than willing to share. So part of it's just stepping out, like, and the persistence of it, because yeah, people are busy, but more often than not, if you ask, asking you shall receive. If you ask someone, they're usually going to help. People want to help.
Yeah,
Naturally.
it's true.
Mm-hmm.
5 was the other one. I got a 1. I routinely seek out and embrace feedback from other people about how they experience my flaws as a leader. So like, hey, the areas that I like, tell me the areas that are not great about my leadership. Like what, like,
Yeah,
like
who would ever want to have that conversation?
I don't think I've
willingly?
ever asked.
Yeah.
I don't. That's why I said never, because I'm like, I don't think I've ever asked that. Like, tell me what you hate about me. Like what bothers you about my leadership, or where can I grow? I'm going to stop being dramatic, but it's like, where do you see areas of growth in my leadership?
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be, and I see the value in it. I just have literally never thought of doing that.
Right.
It's almost like, no, just be a good leader, and if there's no complaints, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true. Like I think as we're reading this book, we're realizing there's so much that goes under the radar that then creates maybe resentment or fallout, or people no longer a part of the ministry or the team or whatever it is that you're a part of. And it could be because of your shadow that you're not addressing. And now you're like, oh man, if I asked them, taken the time to really pursue growth, because that would be a next level, right, of pursuing growth. If I was really pursuing growth in that way, that could have stopped all that. So that to me was another big awareness of like, okay, that's something I would love to do actually, because it really is going to be so healthy.
Yeah. And so some homework, I guess, for us in the next week.
Oh, well, I mean, this is just an ongoing thing. Like I think the biggest thing is like going through this, I don't want it to be this shame, like guilt, condemning type thing. I think it's where's the awareness and move forward with that awareness. So now I know, okay, something you should do as a leader. Check in with the people that are on your team and check in about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's important. So it's not that I'm going to, all this next week, I'm going to go out and ask every single person. It's like, to me, it's not that. It's being aware of it and making a plan of how you're going to go about doing that in the next year, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're going to, in my mind, it's like as long as I'm getting an accurate picture through different people throughout the year, like you're going to continually grow. And let's be honest, I don't think anybody wants like a flood of negativity all at once. So
sure. And I think I want to clear what I meant by homework, because I agree with you. But my brain works. We have all these different things that we're talking about. And when I say homework, I'm like, for me personally to move forward, I need to pick one thing that I'm going to at least focus on. So it might not be asking people why I suck, but it might be reaching out just one time, reaching out to a mentor or somebody. It could be anything from the list of what we're talking about. Maybe I'm going to spend some time working on talking about my emotions and feeling my emotions and journaling. Like what I'm saying is I want to pick something to move forward. But you're right. The awareness creates some momentum. So it's like, at least you're moving forward in that. But with all this here, it's easy to get like go from thing to thing to thing instead of like focusing on one thing. There's just so much here.
Yeah, there is.
So you know it's your shadow when you, I thought that section was kind of cool. But before that, it says, if we buy into the lie that the shadow is what is most true about us, we may well be overwhelmed and potentially throw up our hands, believing there is nothing we can do. And this has grave consequences. Yet we can't ignore the shadow without paying a price. So eventually it's going to catch up with you. Yeah. And so he says, you know it's your shadow when you, and I just highlighted a few, act out inappropriately when under pressure, disregard your spouse or coworker when they bring up a difficult issue about you and your behavior, like Monday night when you did that to me. Do and say things out of fear of what other people think. Get busier rather than more reflective when you are anxious.
Yeah, I definitely circled that one.
Yeah.
That one, I mean, that's on the regular. Anytime I get anxious, I like start piling on more things on my list, and then it does not help. I don't understand why I do that. I'm like, oh, and I have to do laundry, and I have to fold it, and I have to put it away, and I have to mop the floors, and I have to clean that one closet that has just been on the list forever. And it's like, why am I doing that? So like yesterday, because we're so aware, like yesterday, I was starting to feel that buildup of that anxiety, and my mind was like, I need to change the sheets, I need to wash that, and I was like, I'm vetoing all of that, and I'm going to go on a walk with my boys. And so we went outside, and then we went for a really long walk. And because I knew it was like, okay, you're going in a pattern, stop the pattern. All of that can wait. Truly, all of that can wait. You're putting yourself in a state for an image or for a clean house that literally in a half hour is going to get jacked up anyway. So it was like, hold on, slow down. So even just, again, the awareness helped me shift. And it was like, okay, in that moment, I chose rest instead of work. And so it ended up being really good. I came home, I was like, I love my house instead of like, ugh. So that was really good.
Oh, yeah.
He just I wrote down defense mechanism, and that was denial, minimizing, blaming yourself, blaming others, rationalizing, distracting, projecting anger outward. These were all like the self-protective mechanisms of when we're choosing to ignore our shadow that we use.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to jump over if we can,
Yeah.
because I don't want to go forever on here, but he does talk about, your shadow and where it really kind of stems from. And it comes from, that time. He says, even just looking in between the ages 8 and 12, that it's really in your upbringing. It's something that you experience as you're growing up. There's different experiences that really create these patterns and the shadow inside of you. And so he asks you to do a genogram. So this genogram is basically looking at yourselves, your parents, and their parents, and kind of looking at grandparents, parents, and then you, and trying to look at, okay, is there divorce? Is there abuse? Is there like different personality or characteristics in these
And
families
how
that
are
you
the
could see?
relationships?
Yeah, that you could see patterns forming that whether you know it or not, those are what you were brought up with. So I remember doing this and I'm like, oh my gosh, there are so many people just in that, like grandparents, parents, like, and then all aunts and uncles and stuff. There's so many people that dealt with alcoholism. And I'm like, that's a big deal. Like, that's not a small thing, right? So like really laying it out and being able to see that, I thought that was a really valuable tool in doing that. He asked several different questions along with that, and one of them was just realizing, like, what are the insights you're becoming aware of that help you to make sense of how your family of origin or others impacted who you are today. And talking about going back to then the question of, I consistently seek out mentorship and all of that, and I just kind of sat there realizing, like, oh my gosh, like, I know I feel like I was a really good daughter to my dad. Like, I was a daddy's girl. I wanted to wear his shirt to bed. I wanted his pillow. Like, I wanted, like, I just wanted to be with my dad all the time. And we'd have conversations as I was growing up. And it was very much like, well, what do you think? And I would tell him and I'd say, but tell me what to do. He wouldn't. He'd say, I trust that you're going to make the right decision. And that was like a lot of pressure. Like, I say pressure, but like, oh my gosh, he thinks I'm going to do the right thing. Like, I gotta make the right choice. But at the same time, he believes I'm going to make the right choice. And so that was really empowering and enabling for me to really stand in knowing that I could believe myself in making the right choice. So me and the Father God, right? Me and the Father and Jesus, that's a very easy relationship for me to have because I know what it's like to be a good daughter for a father. But I think what was hard for me is to understand how to be a good daughter to a mom. And my mom and I just didn't have a great relationship growing up. I was such a punk and I wasn't nice until I moved out, and that was like 20 years old. So when I look at like ages 8 all the way through 20, it's like, no, that might be why it's hard for me to find like a female mentor or a female spiritual leader or whatever. So that was a really good awareness because it's like, oh, okay, that's something I can change. Like, I can work on that. If there's an awareness around it, I can work on that. I can ask the Lord, show me how to do that. Show me how to become a good daughter. Um, so that was one of the bigger things that just I realized.
Yeah, that's huge. Like that can go in so many different directions. And interestingly enough, we didn't really talk about this, but I found something similar.
Mm.
My dad was distant. Like, he was always there at my sporting events. And we would, at night, probably till I was like 11 or maybe even 12, we would like lay down on this little rug and like watch TV together. Like, that was what we did together, and kind of snuggle, but we never talked. Like, we never had conversation. And so my mom was really proper, and she was kind of on the side of perfectionism, and she was an entertainer, and she like made amazing meals and did a lot of great stuff. And so I I find myself leaning towards that, but not having a lot of male relationships in my life. And I gained so many skills to help other people, but not helping myself because the leader, my father in my life, we didn't have like a huge connection. Uh, and that's like, whoa, just thinking about that and realizing, okay, well, I also have the patterns in my life. We had a lot of loss, cancer, death, that kind of stuff. And there was abuse in both of my on both of my parents' sides that they dealt with. And so just realizing that not only did my parents do the best they could, right, with what they had, but just realizing some of the some of the patterns that I'm dealing with that were kind of passed down, from them. And so in my leadership, I think you go kind of one of two ways. Like you either are like, I'm never going to be like that, or you find yourself falling into the same patterns. And I find myself going back and forth, like so far away, like I'm never going to do that. And then like, oh, I just did it. Like, what the heck? I was so far away. And so it's this teeter totter. So, and I think that once I start actually expressing my emotions and journaling and find someone to actually confide in and talk about, other than you, I think that some of those things will work themselves out.
Yeah. The other really interesting thing that I realized was when I described my household, so just mom, dad, brothers, me, I kind of thought about it and I'm like, I feel like it's kind of distant. And only because, I mean, I had two full-time working parents, so they work their butts off. And so when they came home, and I've experienced working full-time, working part-time, full-time stay-at-home mom. I've experienced literally everything. Part-time, yeah, part-time working, part-time stay-at-home mom. Like I've experienced everything. When you work full-time, you kind of never leave that go mode. You go to work, you come home, and then it's like go. All right, we got to get dinner going. We got to eat dinner. We got to do homework. We got to get them changed and or showered and bedtime routine and all that, and then get them in bed. Like it is just boom, 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 boom. And so I understand that now. But looking back, I'm like, wow, my parents were just, it just seemed like they were busy, right? They'd get off of work, they were tired, but they kept pressing on to make dinner and, make sure we had our homework done and all of that. And because there was that distance that I felt, I realized I spent a lot of time on my own, like just by myself. As a kid, I'd be playing outside, um, oftentimes by myself playing outside. And so I was that kid who was like super imaginative, where it was like I was creating my own games. I had imaginary friends. Like I spent so much time. I used to create songs and write my own little, create my own little music and songs and stuff. um, but I remember like even, 10, 11, 12, like as soon as I was able to really write, I mean, I would sit in my closet and I'd light a candle, and I'd just write in my journal or poetry or whatever. But I realized that made me a very distant person, and it takes a lot of effort to go out and really connect with people, which I feel like I've done a really good job doing that. But just realizing that, wow, there's some distance there, realizing too that there's some of that pattern happening in our home now, where we get everybody off of school. I check in, like, do you need, let me know if you need help with your homework. Like, I'm not sitting with them with homework. Let me know if you need help. And so the older boys go off, do their homework. The younger boys usually do their own thing. Like they go, like right now, Mike is playing with his toys, and we gave him the iPad so he'd be quiet for this, but
Right.
he's playing with his toys. Elijah would be playing with his, and I'd take that time to clean. And then before you know it, it's like, okay, it's time to start making dinner. We make dinner, everybody eats, and then it's okay, you guys go do your own thing while I clean up. And so it's this whole like distant thing where sometimes I hear people talking about, oh, we all cook dinner together. We all clean the kitchen together. Like we've done that a couple times, and it's actually really cool. Like I enjoy because we're spending time together versus being distant. So it's something that, again, I'm aware of now that I wasn't aware of before, and I want to start making changes to change that, right? To like actually address that. So
Yeah. Yeah, we should. Yeah, I think a big, as you're working through all of these things, I think the biggest piece of this in understanding what your shadow is, what your bad habits are, what your tendency, what your patterns are, really revolves around a tool called the Enneagram, right?
yes,
So that's, I mean, and we don't want to send you down a whole nother rabbit hole. The crazy thing is, guys, we've done so much work, like up to this point, years and years of emotional work and emotional healing and reading and growing and books and everything else, and marriage retreats and like all that stuff. Uh, but and there's a lot of different ones out there. We can send you to a few. Put in the comments if you like a couple different areas that you can look at some tests to learn more about yourself. But the Enneagram is something that really really helps you understand the way that, like, the why you are the way that you are.
yeah, the motive behind your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the one that we use, Enneagram, a Christian perspective, because why I go that way is because some Enneagram books can actually just be very negative and just pull you down. But this is not just sharing what the motives are for your behavior, but also giving the side of redemption for those different types. So it breaks it into 9 different types. And we're bringing this up because in the book he actually says like the Enneagram is a really good tool to utilize to find out, kind of understand a little bit more about your shadow. And so him and I were going through this, and there's the different types, and I'll just read off really quick like what their primary like banner need is for each one. So type 1 is the need to be perfect. Type 2 is the need to be needed. Type 3, the need to succeed. Type 4, the need to be special. Type 5, the need to perceive. 6 is the need for security. 7, the need to avoid pain. 8, the need to be against. 9, the need to avoid. And so,
Which one do you think you are? Put in the comments. Or, hey, better yet, which one are you and which one do you think we are? Do that before you listen anymore. Because they're going
so
to tell you.
yeah. So, I mean, I know it's very clear for me. I'm a type 3. It's the need to succeed. This type does basically everything for the appearance of success, because as children, we learned very quickly that we received the attention, the love, and the affirmation when we succeeded. So we realized very quickly, oh, if I bring good grades, if I perform well in sports, if I, accomplish something, that's when I get the recognition. And so then it becomes this, okay, that's what I need to do in order to be loved, right? And so that's like the primary motive for doing all the things that we do. So I'll never forget, this is a perfect example of a 3 thing to do. I was homeschooling 2 of my kids. I had a toddler and I was pregnant. So this wasn't that long ago, seeing that my baby is 3. So I'm doing all these things. I meet up with a friend and she's like, "Oh my gosh, make it look so easy. Like, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Great. It's going great. We're having so much fun, like so much more quality time." And I just stopped because I realized that I was stepping into that 3 role of like lying to appear successful. And so I stopped. I'm like, "I'm sorry. I To be honest, it's really hard. Like I have this wonderful schedule that I hardly ever follow because every single day is different. Like I don't know how my toddler that day is going to be behaving. I don't know what he's going to do." And so she then, like, her whole guard went from like being up to relaxed and like, "Oh, you are human too." Like So it was so much more relational than stepping into that 3 of the unhealthy 3 of being like, oh, it's great, everything's great, I'm amazing, and it's not that hard, you should do it too. Like, because that is what an unhealthy 3 would do. And so for me, it was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm doing this again. I'm doing this again. Oh, hey, yeah, we helped 10 clients last year do such and such. No, you helped 4, or, like 6 or whatever it is. But it's like 3s tend to embellish. They tend to exaggerate. And I'm sorry, my mic keeps flipping into my shirt. They tend to exaggerate. And because they want that affirmation. So they are addicted to praise. And so they need to succeed. That is their need. So a very healthy 3, they're the CEOs, they're managers of companies. Like, they have an incredible way to keep people organized, and efficiency is one of the best things they're one of the things they're best at. And so they do have they're able to adapt as the situation needs. So they're really good at being leaders, because they can understand, okay, right now I need to be firm, or right now I need to really soften up. They're able to read people really well. So healthy 3s are really amazing people as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I share a lot of the 3 tendencies, but I think at my core I'm a 2, and the 2 is a need to be needed, and that really stems from 5 years old, like a memory from 5 years old, and I lost my sister. She got ran over by a school bus in front of her house, and it was a very traumatic experience. And I decided at 5 years old that I was going to grow up, and I was going to be there for other people because they needed me. And I was growing up emotionally at 5 years old. My family was distraught, and I mean, I couldn't imagine.
yeah,
But that would be like,
devastated.
but they were completely devastated, and so I was there for them, and I would help them with whatever they needed, and they would just hold me, because they would need that, or I would just be a good kid. So all of those things developed inside me that, oh, they need me. And so if I can help them feel better, then I can feel better because I'm helping them. And so, like, some people call it the helper, and so that's kind of the complex, I guess you could say. And so there was a huge part of my life where I would just say yes to everyone and help everyone and never ever help myself, and I had to kind of overcome that. But what's the healthy 2 like?
Well, the healthy 2, it's like I think they worded it like, you're it's like you found the best treasure in a healthy 2, because they love so incredibly well, because they not only, once they're able to love themselves when they're healthy, they give without expecting anything in return, versus an unhealthy 2 is like, hey, I did all this for you, so.
And that's been a lot, just even in my real estate career, because I have built my business on relationships and referrals. And then I would help someone, and I would invest in them, and I would throw them a housewarming party, and I'd pray for them and be there for them. And then
They'd use
sometimes
someone
they'd
else
turn
later
around
or
later,
something.
yeah, and they'd sell their house with someone else. And it's like, wait, I thought we were friends, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we are friends. Oh, wait, but like, I did all this for you. So I had to work through that, and I still work through that at times, of not expecting anything in return. Just because I give my all, doesn't mean it's gonna go my way,
Right.
and
Be
that I
reciprocated.
yeah, be reciprocated. And so that's been something that I've been working through over the past couple of years.
Yeah, but they're incredibly loving and serving. I think I want to say that it was who it's right here. They always in this book they kind of give like different examples of people. Um, like they've mentioned Mother Teresa in a 2,
Am I a donkey?
Florence Nightingale. Like, there's certain people like that they recognize as being these types. So like they're saying Mother Teresa is a type 2. So like they tend to be benefactors and givers, and people that really pour into causes, because they want to help people. And when they're healthy, that's coming from a genuine, like authentic place. When they're unhealthy, it's okay, I'm going to serve them because by making sure they're happy, I'm happy. So it's a more of it can be more of a manipulative type thing. So does that answer?
Yeah, that
your
answers.
Question.
And so when you're looking at the Enneagram, because we need to wrap it up, we're approaching an hour here soon, and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
But like, so we went through all this with chapter 2. Like, where would someone start with the Enneagram? Is there a test they can take?
Yeah, so there's different tests all over the internet. I think the one that we did, I can try to link it below, but the one we did was like 150 questions.
Yeah.
It was a lot of questions. They have different ones now because it became super popular, and you can find like little images and memes of type this and type that, and this is me, and all of that everywhere now. But there are several different tests you can do. Sometimes even just reading through, you'll identify really quickly, like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's me. So yeah, we can put a link in the description of where they can take that test.
Great. So start with the Enneagram. We're curious to see how you scored on the test and what some of your insights were from chapter 2. So if you find yourself reading this or watching this video, just go ahead and leave some comments below about what your insights were and what stood out for you. And next week, we'll be talking about leading from marriage.
Yeah.
Or
singleness. Yeah.
Marriage or singleness. Yeah.
Depending on what you are, married or single.
Yep. A little foreshadowing. One of the keys to a successful marriage is snuggling naked. Skin to skin.
You're so excited about that.
That's the one I want. That's all I want.
It's like, I just want to get to that.
Yeah.
I just want
what chapter is that?
Can I highlight that and like blow it up, make it like a big
Can we
poster?
just get naked? Can we just naked right now? All right, guys. Hey, we'll see you next week. Take care.